So now we can continue with writing the service method for getting one product by ID. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna say it's gonna be another public, but this time it's gonna return just a product, and I'm gonna say get product by ID. And this method would probably need to receive the ID, and the ID is gonna be long, so I'm just gonna say that I'm receiving a product ID. And in here we're gonna fetch, so we're gonna do product JPA repository dot find by ID. Now this is a method that already comes into our JPA repository pre-implemented. It's right there and we can use it. So the JPA repository does come with some default methods that we can use, like save, like find by ID, find all. In this case we're going to be using the find by ID, and we're just going to pass the product ID, and this is going to be an optional. So now what we can do is we can actually return an optional. So what I'm going to say here, it's not going to be a product, but it's going to return an optional of a product. I'm going to import the class, and just like that I will return the product. But as you can see, this is not really gonna work because we need to first map it. So now what we need to do, we need to go ahead and map our test and our product entity. So I'm gonna introduce a product entity here, and we're gonna do a little mapping. So we're gonna do a little check, because this is gonna return a product entity and we wanna map it to our product. We first wanna check if product entity dot is empty, then I'm gonna return optional dot empty. So we're gonna return an empty optional if I'm gonna return an empty optional. Let me just return it. Actually, I'm gonna return an empty optional if we don't have anything like that in the DB. Otherwise, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a product equals new product, and I'm gonna say otherwise we can extract it from the optional. So I can say product entity product from DB would be equal product entity dot get. So we can extract it. We've done the check, we know it's not empty, we can go ahead and extract it. And now I can go ahead and construct a new product dot get product from DB dot get ID, product from DB dot get name, and product from DB dot get description. And just like that, what we've done is we've fetched the product. So we fetched the product with the ID. We've checked if that product is there. So if the optional is not empty. So if it is empty, we're returning an empty optional, but if it is not, then we're continuing, we're getting it out of the optional, we're creating a new product here, and that's the product that we are gonna return, but we're gonna return an optional of that product, so optional of the product. And just like that, we've implemented the get product by ID service method. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go to our controller, and instead of doing this implementation here, I'm gonna remove this thing from here because we're not gonna need that. So we're not gonna need to use the static list anymore. We're gonna still be expecting an optional, but in this case the optional is gonna be out of product, and it's gonna be named, let's name it product optional, but in this case we're gonna get it from the service. So from the product service that get product by ID, we're gonna pass the ID. And just like that, we're no longer using this static list to get the product by ID, but we're actually calling the service that implements and uses the JPA repository to actually find that product by that ID from the DB. It does some checking, and then if everything is fine, it returns the product as an optional, and also we do all the standard checking here. So now if I restart the application and if we go to Postman, so let's go first in the DB. We are still having the product from previously that we've added with ID 1. So we know that we have a product with ID 1. So now I'm gonna restart the application and I'm gonna go to Postman and I'm gonna try to get that product with ID 1. So that's gonna be /API/product/1. I'm gonna click send, and as you can see, we are getting that product fetched right from the DB. Now if I try to fetch a product that we don't have in the DB will return an empty optional there, the JPA repository, and we would get the standard handling that we have with the 404 not found, so that we haven't found the product with ID 2 in this case. So that's how would we implement the find by ID using the JPA repository and using a service that then is being called from the controller. So that's going to be it for this video. In the next videos, we're going to continue with implementing the other methods or the other endpoints.